Mark McMahon is a USPTA Master Professional and has been recognized as a USPTA National Pro of the Year. In 2008, Mark founded McMahon 10S and today works with private clubs to assist in their hiring of the right professional as director of tennis, racket sports, etc. Career coaching for professionals is a personal passion for Mark and one of the most important services he provides. McMahon helps professionals assess their career path, establish goals, and then helps each client identify and develop the needed skills to achieve success. Mark, what prompted you to explore career coaching as a niche area?
Well, Kevin, it really came out of the work I was doing with clubs to help them in their hiring process. And, you know, quite the fact is that for every director of tennis, director of racket sports job, there might be 60, 70, 80 applicants. So, you know, you have one person that gets that job and 69 others that want to know, you know, what they could do better, how they can improve, better position themselves for future opportunities and so forth. And we as an industry are very generous, and you can see that by these webinars that are being produced, and everyone's willing to share with everybody else. And I feel that I've done that for years. But as I started to spend time with pros that really had questions about how they could compete more effectively and maybe even reinvent themselves, it became evident that there needed to be more process around it and a little bit more structure to coming up with a plan for people to improve their professional lives. So in looking at other industries, formal coaching is a strong component and a very evident component, and something that very often companies will invest in on behalf of their employees if the employee doesn't do it themselves. So I just felt that there was both a need, and the reality is that there was an opportunity to expand the business. And I think the purpose of your webinars are to look for alternative revenue streams, and I think that type of thinking is really important right now. So that was sort of the pathway, if you will, for me to get into this aspect of the industry.
Okay, and it sounds like from a previous communication and from what you just said that there were pros had said some things to you that suggested there was a need. I mean, what sorts of things were they saying to you that you saw some similarity from comment to comment or question to question?
Yeah, so it would actually run the gamut. So, you know, again, in a process of competing for a job, and I always consider it to be like a marathon. First, you have to qualify for the race. Then you don't want to trip for the first, 21 miles, and then you have to actually run faster than everyone else the last 5 miles. And if we take that analogy, qualifying for the marathon, I'd have pros say, well, I didn't even get an interview. Why didn't I get an interview? And in that particular instance, someone was maybe in a indoor commercial club in Ohio, and they wanted to be the director of tennis at a country club with outdoor clay courts in Naples, Florida. There just wasn't a good positioning for that job. So that would be one type of person. So how could I help that person take some intermediate steps to ultimately position themselves for that job at an outdoor club in Florida? That was one consideration. Second group would be the candidate who ends up in the top 10, top 12, top 6, and they don't get moved along to the next phase. And that could be one particular aspect of their skill set that is lacking. It could be one part of their career path that doesn't quite gel with the needs of a club for that particular time. So, what could that person do to enhance a skill that they maybe haven't had quite enough experience with? Or if there is a weakness there, how can they either mitigate that weakness or position themselves in a way that they get a chance to get in front of the search committee where the weakness is not as glaring? So that was sort of the second group. And the third group might be someone that really is in the top 3 or 4, and they would say, what could I do differently? And very often the answer is nothing. Very often it's about the need of the club And it's kind of like a dating to marriage, right? It's not always the perfect match, and one candidate might, one part of that potential relationship might feel that they are in love, and the other person says, well, I just want this person as a friend. So there are a lot of different needs that exist, and I think, understanding those needs and giving some clarity to the situation was one primary objective of kind of launching this business.
Okay, well, it sounds like, Mark, that, I mean, you appreciated that there was a need on this from the standpoint of the tennis pros themselves to maybe be a little bit stronger in positioning themselves for opportunities, but then also that there was a need with clubs that would get a lot of applicants for a various position to effectively go through those applications and pick out the very strongest candidate or candidates. So you figured out early on that there were these needs on both ends. I mean, what was your next step? Like, how did you get started from there?
Well, I really looked at what some other industries were doing, and what type of assistance was readily available. And essentially in terms of kind of launching the concept, it was really like most things. I had a mentor many years ago, and he basically said, paraphrasing, if you wait until something is perfect, you will never get off go. So my concept was basically to put together a loosely defined plan and test the waters. And I based that plan on research that I'd done and study that I did in the field. And at that point, it's a matter of building the concept by measuring and trialing and continuing to test. And ultimately that process starts to become more fine tuned. The feedback that you get from others then starts to create some confidence in the process that you're putting forward. There's got to be people on this call like me who have gone out and taught a lesson and questioned whether or not they were able to really get the point across and the things that they wanted to convey to the student, and to really have an impact on a player's ability at the end of that lesson. And coaching of any type has that component where there's always doubt, and then you see success and you say, yes, that process worked, or that way of communicating worked. And I think if there's an underlying message that I would have, it's not about whether career coaching or coaching of a different type is right for anybody, but to give thought to the skills that you have and how you might be able to test the waters, particularly during a time like this. Take counsel from the colleagues and friends that you have, and start to see if there's an opportunity to see if how you're able to help others and deliver a service off the tennis court in exactly the same way as you do on the tennis court.
Well, it sounds like you developed quite a process, and I think that just developing a process is probably beneficial to anyone starting in any venture. So I think that's a very, very important point.
Well, I think the thing that struck me at first, Kevin, that was necessary was the permission and the need to reflect and sort of look inward. And, I happen to call my process a career SWOT assessment, but I think that concept exists, universally, is how can I improve? What strengths do I have that I can leverage? What opportunities am I missing out on? Where should I be cautious, and maybe even less cautious? Where should I take some risks? So the threats that are out there. And I think looking inward and getting some permission to do that. I think, we're so crazy in our world. For 25 years, I ran tennis programs, and it was like a tornado every day. And I think, stepping back, like Todd said, at this time, it's a great opportunity to sort of think about things. And, I think that's a great opportunity for new businesses and new revenue streams.
Well, you have clients all over the country, I know. And so that necessarily means that you have to work remotely with them. As people explore different opportunities, maybe working from home or just remote in general, do you have tips for folks because you have so much experience working remotely?
Yeah, so it's interesting. When I went to work in 2008 for the USTA, I was tasked with, as you know, Kevin, launching that TSR initiative, right? And we ended up with 90. We started with 60 tennis service reps who were all over the country. And the concept of working alongside of and helping a team that was literally across the country was completely foreign to me. So that opportunity, 15 years later, has actually, manifested itself to something that I can really utilize in my business. I'll share something without sharing anything that is confidential, but I've been working with a club on a search and the final interviews were canceled. Well, that group is now looking to use the technology that we're all using, but with video, to make their final decision. So, if someone's on this call and they've never set up a free Zoom call and they've never tested their video and never tested their microphone, do it at the end of this call, because you don't know what may come, what opportunity may arise. And it's something that when I started doing career coaching, I had never done a remote interview via video. I'd always interviewed my candidates by telephone and ultimately brought them to the interviews. Now I have the opportunity to work with those candidates via video. They're getting the opportunity to do that, and I'm getting a much better result as an outcome. So I would just recommend to everybody, we're seeing it on the news, we're hearing about it, it's kind of crazy times, but it is definitely, it's that type of thing. So the takeaway is you don't have to go and actually just do video, but to leave this call today and think beyond the norm, think outside of what has been the world, because it is changing, and not just because of coronavirus. It is constantly changing.
All right, fantastic. Mark, do you have anything else you'd like to share with folks?
Well, final thought, Kevin. Yes, and it's something from the work I do with the SWOT assessment, and it's basically I ask my clients to think about what their purpose is, why they are tennis professionals, to be able to answer the question, why are you a tennis pro? Why do you do what you do? And, that's being characterized as your story, as your brand, as your personal statement, whatever you want to call it. I think, again, reflecting and being able to look and understand why you are getting up in the morning and the value that you have. And my takeaway has been that so many people have so much to offer, and there's a hesitation there sometimes about a willingness to step up and contribute. And I would just say, take this opportunity, start posting to LinkedIn, start writing articles, start a podcast, whatever it is, share your knowledge and your expertise and your value with the rest of the world, if not at least your industry.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much, Mark. That was terrific.
My pleasure.